I think we're good. Hello, everybody. Happy last Friday of the month. You know what time it is. It is Finest Fridays time. I am, of course, your host, Dom of X, Dom Torres, the assistant editor of comicreleases.com. And to my right is none other than my buddy and partner in time on this project. It is none other than Marvel Epic Podcast curator, collector, Mr. Kurtis Finley. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, it's been a good month for me here, Dom. Glad to be here again and talking about some really good books this month.
We have a lot of good books this month. I completely agree with you on that. I think this might, man, I say this every month, but I feel like every single Finest Fridays is like the best new month because of all the stuff that's coming out. And I do feel really strongly about one of these books in particular, but we're gonna get around to that after we say hello to some of the people in the chat. Munin, good evening to you. Hope you're doing well. I have seen your comments. I am going to be working on the sound in my studio, so be not afraid. I suppose I will fix that as soon as possible. James Abel, of course, the our most wonderful super director, composer, master producer, everything else. Partworks Comics Reader. It is Friday, 6 p.m. my time. It's finest, and it's time to party with Dom and of course Kurtis. Yes, party on, party on. We hope you're doing well. So yes, I will adjust the sound, Mona, my friend. And I have to say, with this specific hashtag sub to Dom, yes, if you are brand new, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button as I cover all things DC, Marvel, and a lot of other things. Partworks Comics here. If you guys can actually believe this, 4 years ago when I was on one of my friend's other live streams, I told him like, hey, I wanted to maybe open up a YouTube channel. One of the people suggested that my whole entire like outro bit or the intro bit for my channel would be sub to Dom because of course like my name being Dom and that whole thing. And then I realized like there's a connotation behind it. Indeed, we look forward to seeing you every month too. Xbox by degrees. I hope you're doing well. Casa de Finch, finest Fridays indeed. Uh, Curtis, on Plastic Man at the moment feels so much more modern than 40s. Minimal narration boxes is great.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot to love there. I think a lot of that is because of the Will Eisner influence on those comics. Absolutely. But you're right. And that's what makes it a lot more enjoyable. It holds up really well.
Completely agreed on that front. Also, Doug, how are you doing, sir? I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well, my friend. Uh, hi, Dynamic Dom of X King Curtis. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Logan. Hope you're doing well. Foxhound, you know my language. I hope we will win tonight. I'm apparently going to a family friend's birthday party. She's turning 19. So yeah, I will be busy tonight, but hopefully we can secure the W. How are you doing, Batman? Hope you're doing well. This is my second time catching a live stream with Curtis this week.
Oh, great. Nice to see you again, Batman.
Indeed, indeed. Atomic Hound, good to see you every single month. I'm glad that you're doing well, my friend. Um, Logan asks, did I manage to secure the Switch? I was thinking of you yesterday. As I was reading people celebrate or commiserate. I did manage to get a Switch at two different locations. For background and those who might not know, I was panicking live on air on Omar's channel a couple days ago because the Switch was about to go live and I was peeling off Pokemon stickers for my Pokemon book just because I was so scared of not being able to get one. I'll tell the full story at some point later because I do want to get to the books and know how busy Curtis is. But I was able to get one at my GameStop, and I also was able to secure one at Walmart. I'm trying to ask around folks if they are interested in a Switch 2, at least here in the U.S. If they would be interested in the Walmart one. Right now, it's a weird logistical nightmare, but I was able to get two. The Walmart one was just a backup, but I will be getting a Switch on release date at my local GameStop, which is awesome. I was able to get the 450, the regular model, and the Mario Kart game because that's what they had in stock. But yes,
Great.
we have a lot there are other different things to talk about. James, if you are here, if you can kindly grab the links and everything else, I would love that. Of course, you can check my buddy out on the Marvel Epic podcast. So we have three books this month. I saw your stream on Monday, and I saw that you got the Superman Family trade paperback. I also got mine, but I've only read five stories, not issues. Five stories in the book.
Wow. So I got it a few days ago, and I've been able to plow through about 300 pages so far because it's actually really, really great. I really loved it. Yeah.
Interesting. So you have been enjoying
Yeah.
the. We could talk about it a little bit later. But obviously, like I'm glad that you got it in because I was like, man, I got your text and I was like, man, what if we don't cover one of the DC find? Like it feels weird when we
Yeah, I
don't
know.
do it. But I'm glad that was in. But
Yeah.
that we will save for last. We have two other DC Finest books to stroll in, and if I can fade us to none other than the Peacemaker trade paperback. This is the first of the three books that came out this month, mostly at the hands of Todd Smith on art. A whole bunch of other different creators like Pat Boyett, Joe Gill, even John Ostrander and Kim Yale have a lot of their hands on this because there are crossovers, there are excerpts of certain titles that are in this specific trade paperback. For those who might not know, again, $39.99. This is the DC Finest Peacemaker Kill for Peace, which collects all of Peacemaker's appearances, including Fight in 5, 40 to 41, and the first Peacemaker miniseries in the 60s. And then after Crisis on Infinite Earths with Peacemaker 1 through 4, that four-issue miniseries, and excerpts and pages, sometimes full issues, from Checkmate 16 through 26, 28 and 32 to 33, Suicide Squad 27 through 30, Vigilante 36 through 38, and 41 through 43, Showcase 93 6 through 11, and Eclipso 11 through 13. What did you think about this book, my friend?
I have mixed feelings about this one. There was stuff that I really liked about it, and there was stuff that I didn't like about it either. It's interesting because it's very similar to the Harley Quinn volume, which and you mentioned because there are excerpts of different issues because Peacemaker never really had his own ongoing title. So all of this stuff is collections a collection of stuff from other his appearances in other stories. And so he's involved in one really, really long story. What was that one called? The Checkmate story. Um, I can't remember the title of it now. The Janus Directive.
Janice, yep, yep.
And so they kind of pull that one apart and give us just the Peacemaker story. And while I thought that concept really worked well in Harley Quinn through the Cataclysm and No Man's Land era, it doesn't work as well here.
Mm.
And maybe it's just that I didn't like the story or whatever, but I found it a lot more disjointed because we weren't getting all of the plots.
Mm.
Um, so the way this book starts is it collects the very few appearances of Peacemaker from the Charlton days, and that's in the 1960s. And he was in a book called Fighting Five as just a backup feature, just a few pages, and that lasted for just two issues. And then he got his own four-issue series or five-issue series, which I don't know if that was meant to only be five issues or if it was just canceled after five issues. I don't know when Charlton went under, but eventually in the 80s, DC scoops up a bunch of these characters, including uh, who's it including?
Blue Beetle.
Um, Blue Beetle, yeah, and whatever. He's one of them. Peacemaker is one of these characters, and so he gets his own series there. And so we skip from the 1960s all the way to 1989. And that's kind of a little bit of a jarring jump because the comics are very different between those two eras. The 1960 stuff is just okay. It's not the best Silver Age stuff that I've read. Um, it has an interesting concept, but then once we oh actually we do, it doesn't even jump into the miniseries first. First, we get the vigilante
Yep.
story. There's a big vigilante story that guest stars Peacemaker, and I really liked that.
Hmm.
I thought it was such a good story, and I loved how they changed the concept of the character so that he is kind of like a more of a Moon Knight type of a guy where every guy that he kills, he believes that their soul gets absorbed into his
Hmm.
helmet, and they talk to him. So he's got all of these different voices in his head of all of these people talking to him and telling him different things. And I thought this is so good. It's way better than the concept in the 60s. This checkmate, or sorry, this vigilante story is really good. I also really like the vigilante character as well. I think that was just exciting because I'd read the issues that were in the Teen Titans DC Finest,
Hmm.
and then it switches and we get to into his four-issue miniseries, and they take away the concept of all of the people going into his helmet, and we're left with just his Nazi father
Hmm.
in his helmet talking
Right.
to him. And I didn't like that as much. I thought um, now now there's only that he's only got that singular voice in his head. He's not battling it, and he's got these daddy issues, and it just wasn't a compelling character anymore. I didn't like it after that. And so the rest of the story, coupled with the fact that the Jonas Directive seemed to be a little bit more um, piecemeal or whatever, I didn't care for it. And I thought it had kind of a poor, just a weird sudden ending that didn't really have a conclusion to that story either. So yeah, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed with this book overall.
No, I feel you on this front, and part of me, and we can obviously discuss the differences between how strong I think like Cassandra Cain's character is compared to Christopher Smith. Because honestly, like I think for the most part is a pretty boring character. I want to know why James Gunn decided to make him like the face of a lot. Maybe it's just because of the John Cena of it all, but obviously he's had a really big presence in the brand new DC universe that they're making for the movies and the TV shows, which is probably why we have this book to begin with, right? Um, and you have and just on the differences of the character from the 60s to the 80s. This is, it's not a new thing for DC to completely revamp their characters from time to time because of all the events that are going on, the crises, and I mean, this book is filled with retcons. I mean, there's no way of putting it else. Like you get the 60s character is so different from the character that fights Vigilante, and then we get like more retcons in the Peacemaker miniseries, and then we have the Janus Directive. You have him showing up in Checkmate, and then the showcase issues. But I never felt in any case, despite every single time that they've tried to revamp or reboot the character, that his story was something that I was gravitating towards. Like there just wasn't a big enough pitch, at least for me, to feel something for Christopher, because a lot, like, I find his personality super bland. And I find even like, they read the 60s where it's like, I'm gonna fight and like I'm gonna fight people only in the case of if I can't, talk to them or whatever, like, and make sure that we have a resolution there. It's something that I've noticed that is probably why a lot of people gravitate towards the TV show character more than the comics, because the comics person just does not have a lot going for him. And I wish that it did. And I think the mapping, I'll give them credit that like we get all of the Peacemaker informations and the backups and all of the pages that you need, like for background information, whether it's you're going into a crossover or whatever. Like he's there. I just don't think Christopher Smith or Schmidt, whatever you want to call him, is an interesting character at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope. I don't know if there are going to be any more volumes of this. I don't know how heavily Peacemaker's used in the DC universe. Did he ever get his own ongoing title?
No,
No,
no.
not even after like the movies came out or anything. No.
They've had miniseries where he's like popped up where it's like like Black Label. Kyle Starks had a miniseries a couple of years ago. Chris Anka did some covers on it. That was more like the show character than this
Okay.
character. But other than that, not at all.
Then I think if this is one and done, then that's fine. I don't need to read any more about this character if that's the way he's portrayed. Unfortunate. But what I did get out of this is that I really, really want to have now a line of vigilante um uh collections because I really liked those issues the most.
He's such a weird character, but I oddly like want to see more of him. I know that
Yep.
like he's got his own like completely different thing going on, but between the cyborg crossover, if you want to call it, with New Teen Titans, and now like him fighting Peacemaker, I do want to see that like printed out. Like I really do appreciate that DC managed to throw Vigilante and also like early Checkmate issues in here, which gives me hope that maybe someday they could do a DC Finest of those two lines.
Yeah, I am really interested in reading the full Janus Directive story, like uncut,
Mm-hmm.
basically, to see if it reads better. I'm hoping it does.
Yeah, completely agree. I think the Janus directive, I think when it's not, if you're taking away like the Peacemaker centric part of it and like um just using this like every single one of those specific like Suicide Squad crossover issues, I think it reads a lot better than the excerpts than you get in this book. I'm gonna be completely honest. Like I find it admirable that they managed to map it that way where you're only getting the Peacemaker bits, but again, like for a character who I just don't think is interesting at all, like at all, it's really hard for me to sell myself on like I told people like if you like GI Joe, because Cobra does show up in here, I'm like, hey, that reminds me of GI Joe. A lot of these missions are very GI Joe like, but at the same time I'm also saying like, why not just read GI Joe instead of this? I don't mean to disparage the character, but I just think that other comics were doing better things than this specific character at the time. But
Yeah, but I'm glad that it exists for posterity and that people who are interested in the character have a chance to have this content because I think this is correct me if I'm wrong, this is stuff that hasn't been collected before.
no, yeah,
So the only way to get it would be to find it in the bins.
mhm.
But now here it is, all ready for you.
I know, yeah, like even like the quality of like the early comics like being scanned and all that, like I was super impressed by like how crisp the detail, like a lot crisper the details than I thought they were gonna be, at least on those. Um, maybe it's just I
Yeah.
think yeah,
Th-
go, sorry.
Yeah, that's very true. Those 60s issues have been really, really lovingly restored, and the artwork by Pat Boyette is actually really great. I do really like his artwork. Whoever colored it, I don't know if Pat colored it himself, but he uses a lot of colors that are not as commonly used in Silver Age comics, like a lot of greens. Green um, never really reproduced well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, sorry. That's it's not that green didn't reproduce well, it's that he uses multiple shades of green. So if you go to the submarine scene
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of all underwater and he uses multiple shades of green, when you are printing that on old newsprint with the old four color process, it's like a lot of it may start to blend together and such. But whoever was the colorist on this still decided to do that. And in this book, it looks really nice. I appreciate that kind of feel. Not a lot of comics were doing that kind of thing. The artwork in general looks like something that Dell or Gold Key
Mm-hmm.
would be producing.
Mm-hmm.
It just has that style stuff of comic. It's not similar to what Marvel or DC was doing at the time, but very similar to like the Alex Toth kind of
Mm-hmm.
school of comic art. So that one is great. The rest of the artists in here are also really good. The Vigilante artist, who did you say that was?
Todd
Was that
Smith,
Todd
yeah,
Smith?
Todd Smith.
Yeah, he's really good. I thought that excellent storytelling, excellent um excellent panel layouts, a lot of kind of moody atmospheres going a little bit noir in some places. I thought that was great. And then after that, I wasn't as keen on the artist for the miniseries. Um, let's see who that is, because I thought that one kind of oh, Paul. Oh no, is it? It's Todd Smith as
I think
well.
so, yeah, but it feels a lot more rough around the edges than I think it was on Vigilante. At least for that's how I uh
Yeah, and that might be because of the inker. Let's see who the inker is on that. So Vigilante's inker is Rick Magyar,
mhm,
and Pablo Marcos is the inker of the miniseries, which is odd because I really like Pablo Marcos as an inker.
mhm,
But yeah, it is a little bit rougher. I don't like it as much. What I also don't like about the miniseries is that it plays into a lot of Asian stereotypes and
yeah.
even has the slurs that you
Mhm,
wouldn't repeat in today's language, and they reprint it without putting a little censor or box over it, like the Epic collections have been doing with some of their words. But it's there and it's jarring, and especially for me, and I don't know about
mhm,
you as well. Me being an Asian, I'm probably more sensitive to the Asian stereotypes than anything. But they're still going on that whole Fu Manchu,
mhm.
long fingernails, and all that kind of stuff in that one. And I'm like, really, did we
Yeah.
have to do that?
I
It still,
I
it's like
yeah.
it's the late '80s and they're
Mhm.
still doing that.
I brought it. It's funny you talk about that because I brought it up in class, for like an open discussion. We were just talking about like how everybody's day was going, and I brought this book to class, and I told people to check out the Peacemaker 1989 series, and I pointed to specific panels. And I'm questioning it myself. I understand like there's World War II history behind the character and all. We're gonna retcon that. I just didn't feel like it was appropriate for this book at all. Like I feel like you could have done it in like just not done it at all or moved it in different ways where it be a lot more sensitive as opposed to like I
Hmm.
would understand it maybe if it was like in the 50s or 60s, like if that popped up in the first 5 issue miniseries I wouldn't have been surprised, but to see it so late it's super weird. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with what Claremont was doing in X-Men too. He falls into those, but for a
Hmm.
different purpose. I think he uses those words to try and show how bad they are, whereas this one was just using the words for,
Right.
I don't know if it was just shock value or whatever, but also I think people don't take the Asian slurs as seriously as they do with
Hmm.
the African American slurs,
Yeah, yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes
for sure.
sense.
No,
So
no, no, for sure.
I don't know.
I just don't think it's I completely agree with you. Like I just don't think it's as talked about. And the only reason I'm doing it
Yeah,
because my class is specifically designed to talk about stuff like this, whereas something else. So I get you 100% on that front as an Asian myself as well.
right. Okay, well, I think we've bashed this one enough. It's not that all of it is bad. It's just that most of it is bad. Not and maybe not bad. It's just not my thing.
Mhm.
I'm sure other people find enjoyment about it. And if you people out there in the chat like Peacemaker, I would love to hear your comments on how you like this book and how you took a lot of this content, all of the Janus effect or directive and all of that kind of stuff. Because um, all of this is subjective.
Mhm.
People have different tastes, and maybe you love it.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Let us know in the comment section down below in the live chat. Seems like Partworks Comics Reader is also at a convention or talking about a convention. Here to cope about the reprint poll results. But we're not talking about Marvel right now, Arjun. But we're glad that you're here. But yes, James Moore is right. This is the only one and done. Because, yeah, I mean, he just doesn't pop up. Like I said, I want to know what the specific reason is to why James Gunn decided to make Peacemaker such an A-list character in his movies and TV shows when he's literally nothing here. Like you watch those movies again and again, he's such a different character. Like the
Yeah.
um I how do I put it in this way? I'll just say crotch talking John Cena is a lot more interesting than the
You know,
Peacemaker.
and that's probably why they made a drastic change.
Mhm.
because they knew like we have a character that he looks cool. He's got that cool helmet or whatever. It's kind of a dorky helmet actually, but anyway, he's got a lot of potential to look really cool, but we need to change his character. And I think this is one of the common things with with the movies is if we have a character that is not popular and we need to retool it, let's make him funny.
Mhm.
They did that with Iron Man.
Yep.
The Iron Man wasn't really that popular in the comics up until that movie came out, and Tony Stark kind of made him a little bit of a wisecracker and a smartass. And so, like that, in that sense, he's funnier and people liked him a little bit better. Guardians of the Galaxy, they turned that into a comedic movie. People loved it. I loved it. I thought it
Me
was
too.
great.
It's one of my favorite
Um,
movies.
and I think they did the same thing with Peacemaker as well. It's like, let's give this guy a little bit of a a humoristic
Mhm.
attitude, and people will love that, and it'll be
Mhm.
memorable.
For sure. Strangely enough, Christopher Smith was also a pretty large part of the first Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle run back after Infinite Crisis, and to that point, I think that I doubt that they're gonna make another, one of these sets. Like we're gonna have a Blue Beetle DC Finest that'll collect the first Jaime Reyes run. Right after something happens to the previous Blue Beetle, and I won't spoil as to what happens there. But yeah, I'm happy with this being a one and done because that means that we can focus on other characters that I think have a little bit more substance than Christopher Smith. Jordan asks, to whom would you recommend the Peacemaker book?
That's a good question. I am not exactly sure who I would recommend this to.
If you like GI Joe, I think you're gonna like some of the stuff in here. If you don't like GI Joe, yeah, I just don't think he's interesting. Like I'm so like he's a bland character. So yeah, kudos to James Gunn for making him more interesting. Some obscure Alan Moore issues in the later Vigilante run too. So that means we need a Vigilante DC Finest at some point. Partworks Comics reader, um, for sure. Two books. This month, two books next month. We got three books this month. I didn't have enough time to edit the itinerary, but we are going to be talking about three books today. So yes.
It's 3 books every month. They haven't slowed down. 3 books every month, all the way till December, I think. And then there's only two in December,
Indeed.
probably because of the holiday or something.
Mm-hmm. And yes, check out Janus Directive in its entirety. It's really a checkmate story. Yeah, completely agreed on that front. I asked a friend of mine who's read all of Suicide Squad by John Ostrander and asked him like, am I getting the full story out of everything in this specific trade paperback? And he said you need to read the entirety of. There's a lot more background because they cut a lot of those issues out specifically just to give us the Peacemaker bits. So,
Right.
I'm yeah excited for the next DC Finest. Um, and yes, Batgirl is next. We will talk about that in a second. Just want to quickly check in with the chat. Um, yeah, I haven't had a lot of interesting conversations with people in that specific class because I love comics and I want to tell people to check out as many as they can. And a lot of the volumes that I've read, like it's either been like not even just for DC Finest, but overall, like talking about stereotypes, even talking about the time like that Diana showed up in the Philippines in the JSA All Stars comics that we read back all the way back a couple months ago. And it's very interesting to just see like how people react and respond to stuff maybe taken out of context or like in context, giving them background like, hey, I'm enjoying this or I'm reading this and this is how I feel about it. So it's very, very nice. Completely agreed there. Rip Peacemaker from James Abel. Yeah, see, like I feel you guys there. Like it feels it again. I get the behind the scenes part of it and why they decided to make this, but I just think that we're on to bigger and better things. I think is what we're on this.
A few months ago, I think people were asking what are our most anticipated volumes, and Peacemaker was the one at the top of my list. I was really looking forward to this one in Plastic Man, and Plastic Man delivered, and I was disappointed that this one did not.
Oh, I get you there. I 100% agree. Um, let's see. Baffling that there were no warnings, but also it should be treated equally as they are all bad, obviously.
Well, they did have a warning. All of these books have in their table of contents the little line here. It says the comics reprinted in this volume were products at the time when racism played a larger role in society and popular culture, both consciously and unconsciously. They are presented here without alteration for historical reference. And so it's there. Let's see, does Batgirl have it? I
It
don't
does
remember.
not.
Okay, so they are aware that that content was there, and that's where they put all of that kind of warning. It's always in small print, kind of in with the legal mumbo jumbo at the beginning, but it's no one. It's not in your face or anything like that. I think people when they first started putting warnings like that, they were a lot more obvious. And do you remember when like some old DVDs or Blu-ray TV shows, they would the big warning would come up. I think with Looney Tunes, the warning would come up and you'd have to watch it for 10 seconds before you could move on to the actual thing. And people were like, why are they shoving this in our face?
Mhm.
This is too much. Of course we know, or whatever, whatever. So they've made it a little less obvious and hid it in there. So it's like the warning's there. It's just not no one sees it.
Right. Because no, when I read books usually or typically, I always come to like a semi understanding of like, I expect to read whatever's in there, but I don't know how many people are like going through say the table of contents, like especially if you're a new reader. I don't know if anyone's going through the table of contents and like reading every single itty bitty thing. And I guarantee you, like the amount of people who've read the editorial bits of like, oh, like who is the creative team behind, like who's the editor in chief, who was the editor of the time, with copyright, like nobody's reading that, like no one. So,
No one.
um, yeah, it is what it is. Always thought he kind of resembled Bullet Man. I can see that. I can definitely see that.
He's definitely got a bullet kind of a helmet.
It definitely does. Soap opera 80s Iron Man had the perm. Perm is a characterization, right? I
It
guess.
certainly is. And I wasn't saying that he had no character. He just had an unlikable character, a character that people didn't care about. Maybe people don't care about perms.
Mark Bright definitely gave him that perm light. They should probably have put a bigger extra content warning on this book. Don't think they should have censored it, but I agree. It is shocking that they were doing that in the 80s.
I don't think that they should have
Mhm.
censored it either. I don't, because these books, if they were marketing this book to kids, I think that they should have been censored or choosing more their issues more
Mhm.
carefully or whatever. But because it's not, it's like, no, don't censor it.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. There's no real great answer for
No, for
any
sure.
of that kind of stuff these days.
Yeah, for sure. I thought the Janus Directive would be complete. Yeah, you're only getting the Peacemaker bits of the Janus Directive. It is not the full crossover, which is, again, it is what it is. Hopefully, we get some more Flash volumes. We only have one until me too. I really like that
Yeah.
Flash Silver Age stuff. Like I was
Yep.
super super into that. Um, but what?
There is
Yeah,
so much uncollected Flash over over the course of that whatever 60 years or so. So much.
for
So
sure.
it'd be great to have some volumes of stuff we haven't seen before.
For sure. And last comment before we get into Batgirl. Planet 628, too young to appreciate the Suicide Squad checkmate stuff at DC. Can't wait to collect all of this stuff at some point.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
along with that, I would like to talk about, I think, by far my favorite book this month, which is none other than Batgirl. Nobody Dies Tonight. Cassandra Cain is one of my favorite characters, and this is collecting the 2000 Batgirl run from issues 7 through 27, Superboy 85, and Supergirl 63. Now, Kurtis, I remember you talking big about this book, or at least teasing big about this book when we were on Jess's channel back a couple of months ago, and I have a couple of stories to tell for this book. But I would like you to go first in talking about your
Okay.
experience with this run.
Yes, so going in totally blind, like I'm doing with most of this DC stuff, I've of course heard of this character before, and I knew of her existence, but didn't really know anything about her to the point where I also didn't know that she didn't talk or barely spoke. So this was a big revelation. I absolutely loved it. I plowed through the whole thing in maybe 3 sittings, and it was really, really, really good. Um, the thing that I like about it most is Kelly Puckett
Mm-hmm.
presents these in pretty much kind of standalone single
Mm-hmm.
issues. There's an overall story arc, but each one of these issues is its own standalone story. And I love that. I love the combination of that kind of storytelling, but also with the modern sensibilities of the artwork, the panel layouts, and just the way that stories are told. So it was a really good combination. The character is so interesting. Her backstory, while we don't really get her backstory because it's missing the first
Verse
six
6 issues.
issues,
Yeah.
you can still jump right in and
Mm.
understand through context what's going on and what she's trying to accomplish. I love that this book is kind of her meeting all of the different characters in the Batman and kind of Superman family as well. So like every other issue has some sort of guest star, Robin or Supergirl and Superman. All these people. Spoiler shows up a
Mm-hmm.
few issues, and I think that's important for a character who doesn't talk
Mm-hmm.
because you need someone to engage with this character and speak on behalf either on behalf of the character or on behalf of us the viewer so that the character who doesn't talk has someone saying what we need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I really really like that. um, I also completely appreciated it's mostly written by Kelly Puckett with a few issues by Chuck Dixon, who really also nails what Kelly Puckett's trying to accomplish. um, each one of these issues has kind of a melancholy or sad ending to the issue. And it's not that it's like sad because someone dies or whatever, but you get through with reading this and just the themes and the things they're talking about, you just sit there and you go, wow, yeah, that was a good issue.
It was a really good
And
issue.
I can't really explain the feeling, but it was just like I feel bad for this character and at the end and sorry for her life and her upbringing. And Kelly manages to accomplish that at the end of every single issue. It's not a big dramatic fanfare of a finale, or they don't laugh or whatever like a sitcom and stuff. It's just it sits in the moment every at the end of every single issue, and I really appreciated that. I thought that was really great.
There might be no better team like ever in comp besides like the Kelly Puckett Damian Scott duo that does silent pages better, because
Yeah.
they hit you in so many different ways because of Cassandra's character and her personality not being able to speak in complete sentences like most people.
Yeah.
But man, like
Well, and you the the costume design for Batgirl
mm-hmm,
is you can't see her eyes and you can't see her mouth, and that is the most important for a character expression. And when you're talking about a character that doesn't talk and you're also removing her complete face from the situation, you have to have a good artist who is skilled at body language and dramatic camera angles or whatever, coloring in order to portray what you want to portray because you're taking all of that away by
mm-hmm.
not showing her face. It's just incredible. He does a really good job.
He does. Like it is. This is a master of a book and one of my favorite Gotham titles, like of all time. Like Cassandra Cain has always been one of my favorite characters because of the strength of her backstory and the strength of like what she is trying to accomplish and fight for, like as a single fighting force in Gotham, and also the characters around her as well. You want to talk about, I think, one of the most endearing and while being one of the most deadly people that you can come across. Like Cassandra Cain has all of that going on in her life, in the relationships that she has, because she has to juggle with like 5-6 different people at one time, between her psychotic father, her mother, who's Lady Shiva, one of the most deadly people in the world, Batman, who is trying to be a good dad, but Bruce doesn't exactly have the emotional strength
Yeah.
of somebody that you can rely on 24/7. I mean, her relationship with Barbara Gordon is like golden. There were some moments when I reread this, because I hadn't read it in 7 years, and the backstory is, when I first read this in 2018, I really really liked it, but a lot of this was also Dom on Reddit, like late high school Dom that doesn't understand like how everything else works. So a lot of people downed the book for me, and it's not in any case by anybody, like anybody's fault. I was just on Reddit too much, and it made me like oddly not resent the book, but it made me feel something different, as opposed to me now completely removed from that atmosphere, and I have such a bigger appreciation for this specific title. So when I reread, it was the issue with Barbara Gordon and Cassandra Cain that were talking, and talking about the whole entire aspect of like, should we take somebody else's life away? Should we kill? Because that theme does pop up in the book a lot, because that is one of Batman's main themes. It's like, we're not going to cross that line, if because that's just something that we don't do here. The issue ends with them talking, and it made me, like you said earlier, like it makes you feel something, like every single last page of the book. It doesn't have to be like this overtly big dramatic thing, and then it's like, oh my gosh, like this is who we have to face in the next issue. You get complete emotional resonance with every single story that's in this book, and I think that plays off to so many of this run's strengths, and also just Cassandra Cain's character as a whole. So if you want to talk about a book made for anybody to read, if you're struggling through something, or if you want to figure out how Batman and the Gotham life is outside of the perspective of Batman, this is the book for you. Like, I have no like qualms or complaints at all with this run.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions when this book was first announced is, why didn't they start with issue one? Why did they start at issue, what is that? Is it
7.
seven
Yeah,
or
7.
yeah? Why did they start with issue 7? And part of that is because there's only so much pre-Batgirl material that they can put in. They'll put in the No Man's Land stuff, right? Um, but I think the main reason for framing this in the issues that they have here is because at the very beginning we're introduced to the Lady Shiva dynamic
Mm-hmm.
right there, and then the whole plot, this overarching theme of they're going to do battle 1 year from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of this book, we get that 1 year battle. So if they had put the first 6 issues in that book, then we would have had to have that 1 year battle in the next volume. So by doing it this way, they've put it all between the two covers, and I think that was a smart move.
Completely agreed. I thought, man, the way you put it is actually so succinct. Because yes, we do get the Lady Shiva and Cassandra Cain meetups every single period of time, and they present it perfectly in this book. Not only that, I also was able to map the first volume, or if you want to call it the previous volume of Batgirl, and there is about 580 pages of content where we've pulled from like the specific excerpts from No Man's Land, and then the first 6 issues. Like, there is more than enough for a thick volume of DC Finest Batgirl. Silent Night. I'm thinking they're probably going to name it Silent Night, to name it after the trade. But it really is just a wonderful, like, it's a wonderful read. Like, I was able to like power through it again in one sitting, and there's no places where I was just like, oh man, I want to stop reading. This is the first book, well, not the first book. A lot of other books have made me feel this way, but man, it hooks you on because of everything like we've mentioned. And on top of that too, like the relationships between her, like I want to bring this to the Superboy meetup, because I thought that was like, man, this is like a pure 2000s book. But I just it's crazy, it's craziness in all of its different ways, where you have like, oh, it's the monster, like the bad guy that we have to fight. But I really enjoyed her and Connor's interactions, just sort of like two characters who are also trying to like get their feet wet
Yeah,
in the bigger worlds, and also getting to see like, oh, like who do we have to face in Metropolis as opposed to Gotham. And you get so many different angles from so many different characters, because you get a it's like it's a one off for every single issue. So one time you might be facing the Joker, we might be facing David Cain, or maybe it's somebody that we don't know, or maybe it's sometimes like, oh, like a character might have died, like we need to figure what's happening with this. So you get like not only just those angles, but you get a lot of different types of stories, whether they be detective or superhero, in the specific volume alone. So you're getting all of these things in this book, which I think just makes it more spectacular for anybody who is new to the hobby, or maybe never read this book and wants to get into Batgirl.
yeah, totally. So it's interesting. I know nothing really about Lady Shiva except what I read in the Green Arrow
Mm-hmm.
DC Finest, and her character has progressed a lot
Yeah.
in between
Yes.
those two
Yes.
appearances. So I want to see a little bit more of Shiva and kind of her rise to power and such.
Completely agree with you there, my friend. Yeah, no, Shiva is awesome. She got I first got her interactions through in the Detective Comics run by James Tynion, 2016 post. So if they ever make like nice post DC finest books in that era, hopefully we'll get to lead you into there, because I do think she is also an awesome. Like, I love Lady Shiva. I also love Talia al Ghul. I guess I just like people who are tangentially related to Batman and also Batman villains, and she obviously happens to be one of them. But I've also I also enjoyed the mother daughter interactions, because they keep you on your toes. I will say, for anybody who hasn't read this, you want to turn the next page every single time that those two end up in the same room. Maybe they don't end up in the same room after. Who knows?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you said it's a mother-daughter dynamic because, and then you also mentioned the Batman is trying to be a dad. Neither of those people are good at
No.
being the parent that she
No.
needs because they're both trying to pull her in different directions on how to use her abilities and how to be a hero or otherwise. And but then she herself, Cassandra, is trying to get the approval of both of those people because she doesn't have a good upbringing at all, and her actual father figure is a piece of work. So
Yes, yes.
it's like, so it's just she's confused and she doesn't know who to look up to or who to use as role models. And that theme is played out so much through the book, and it's really neat to see her kind of coming to grips with certain things.
Completely agreed. And that's why I think, like, again, like, her relationship with Barbara is one of the best things about this book, because Barbara is really
Yes.
like one of those people that she can actually like go to for good advice on how to be a superhero and how to be a person in life. And same thing
Yeah.
too when Stephanie comes on board, and she's also fighting whoever. I love the tiny interactions of, like, she brings up like a I think like a letter with like a whole bunch of sentences that, like, she can't fully read, because she doesn't know how to read in the same way that Stephanie Brown can or Bruce Wayne can. So she pops up, she's like, hey, you please read this for me. Like, and I was just laughing at some of those bits.
Yeah.
Like, it's adorable.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, masterful art, like, throughout this book. Like, I literally I have no bad things to say. Like, I'm trying to figure out if I have any nitpicks, like, just in my brain. So, but I can't think of it. Really, the only thing I remember when I first read this book, and I saw David Cain, I thought to myself, like, is that like, I thought that was a version of Cable and Nick Fury mixed together in one, because of the bulkiness of the person and the costume that
Yeah.
they're wearing. Then I remember, wait, no, I'm in the DC universe. I'm not reading X-Men. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not because of the soap opera, whatever. But besides that, I mean, you want to talk about a title that will keep you reading. I mean, this is like an A plus, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 15 out of 10 recommendation for me. Um, and I hope we get more volume soon. But yes, let's talk to the chat, see what they say. Like, yeah, everybody, yeah, we need this Batgirl run. Um, Goat Book entered the stream, so high praise there from Joe. I completely agreed. Is my time one of my favorite Batgirls runs next to the Stephanie Brown series? I hope that Stephanie Brown collection also gets a DC Finest too, so Curtis can read it. That's also one of my other favorite books, where hers was a lot more about like legacy and also figuring the post Bruce Wayne is redacted world out. This definitely has, I mean, very much mirrored in a lot of ways. Cassandra also pops up, anyways. Um, don't think I've heard anyone say anything negative about this run. I'm woefully unfamiliar with Cassandra. Well, I think you will be a lot more familiar once you get a chance to read this, because yeah, I have legitimately no bad things to say. You guys just convinced me on Cassandra Cain Batgirl, buying it. Fernando says Batgirl is my first buy in the finest format. Fell in love with her character. Reading my No Man's Land Omni. Also, I really like the physical look of the book itself. I also got to say, I actually like this cover a lot more than the previous one that they did. Or was it Joker's Last Laugh tie-in? I don't know. It's much more high quality. I noticed that from the onset. It's a better scan than the previous one, so I'm really glad that they changed the cover. Um, if you have the 3 trade paperbacks, is it worth it to get these? I will say yes, because it looks like they're continuing the finest line, and I can see them printing off the rest of the 73 issue series in the future. What say you, Curtis?
Do the trade paperbacks include the bonus issues like Supergirl 63 and Superboy
No,
85?
no.
Then I would say get this because those two issues are really great.
I agree there. Kratos, bonjour to you. Hope you're doing well. Love that the late 90s Bat family, Cassie, spoiler, Tim are getting so much love in current comics except for Huntress. Hey, you know what, Jarn? I assume you buy Omnis. The Huntress stuff that you're looking for is in the Mariko Tamaki Batman omnibus that's coming out in September. If you want really good Huntress content, Mariko Tamaki writes an excellent Helena. I think that would be a book that you would enjoy. Gabriel Lopez says, Curtis and Dom, really hard to catch you live. Love this team up. I want to read this Batgirl book, waiting for the next Batman book to have the KGB story, waiting for Triangle era in DC Finest. For sure, for sure. Looking forward to picking a Batgirl, doing it out of order, and reading the Stephanie Brown Batgirl stuff recently. Glad I already had some set up for the support cast in Oracle the Cure. It's a good support cast. We'll get the first half signed by Lee Garbet the next time I see him. I love his art. I'm the only one feeling pain looking at opening books without pre-fold crests on the cover. Do they protect glue
Protect the
spot?
glue spines. No, I don't do that either. I don't know if do people call that damaged if people purposely like fold on that scoring line that's on the cover here?
I know that
I
some.
I don't do it.
Go, sorry.
I don't do it myself. When I'm reading the book, I do make sure that I'm holding it on the spine so that it's not going to separate. Because what happens, the book block is glued to the cover just by the first page. So often you'll get the separation of the first page and the second page, because the cover is glued there. And so that's why there's a scoring mark here because you're technically supposed to fold on that line so that the book it protects the that first page from separating. But I never do it. And then once the book is open like this,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no the separation isn't going to happen. It's mostly dangerous when you get to like the last 20 pages or so and you're pulling the book open more like this. Um, but if you're holding it tight as you're reading it, you should be
Mm-hmm.
fine, I think.
When I'm on the
I mean,
Yeah,
there's gutter loss in these, especially full bleed pages, so you do have to kind of pull it open sometimes. But um, I haven't had any problems with it.
I haven't had any either. I mean, all of my books are still holding up. Like some of these DC Finest, I've read like 2 times or 3 times over. Like this, I read 2 times over. Um, it was that good, and I told myself I need to re-experience that. Um, I always hold my books like this while in bed. I have my one of my Pokemon plushies. It's typically my Bulbasaur. They hold it up for me, so it makes the reading experience better because I get the cuddly aspect, and I also make sure that I'm holding it like this or something like this, so it doesn't like fall apart at the seams. Um, yeah, that being said, yeah, it feels weird because like normally I am a hardcover reader, but I've found these to be a lot more like the single issue reading experience, but not in a bad way. But that's just me. Um, this Batgirl should not have been scrapped for New 52. I agree with you there, Atomic Hound. And one thing that I actually am very interested to see, and um, I want to talk about this now before we get on to the next book. DC after Infinite Crisis, they canceled the Batgirl book, and the next time the Cassandra Cain showed up in DC continuity was in the pages of uh, who was the writer on Robin? I think it was somebody. Correct me in the comments section down below. Was it Bill Willingham? I think it was Bill Willingham or somebody else on Robin, and they decided to make Cassandra Cain not only. Can I spoil this for you, Kurtis? Because they're not great issues.
Fine, go for it.
They turned Cassandra Cain into a full-fledged villain again, fighting Tim,
Aw.
and they removed the mute aspects of her character. Like all of a sudden, she can talk in complete sentences. She can do this. She can do that. They remove a lot of the aspects that made her cool. At least in my book, made her interesting, made her like sympathetic. And they just decided let's toss all of that out so we can have Tim fight something. And it took a while for DC's to sort of recover from that. They released a short 5-issue Batgirl run before Final Crisis happened, and then Stephanie Brown became Batgirl. I'm very interested to see. I'm very interested to see like how they're gonna map all that out whenever they come around to that, because they're not. It's not. It wasn't a great time for Batgirl. Um, but what I will say is that I hope we do have everything from 2000 to 2006 all in there collected. So there we go. That is my rant of the day. Um,
Rant.
what material of Barbara Gordon would be included in the volume before this one? I don't know if they. I think what they would do, Jarn, is they would do, because Birds of Prey was running concurrently at the time. I think they would just make a DC Finest Birds of Prey, not worry about the Barbara Gordon as Oracle part. Um, I would say, yeah, if you're looking for Barbara Gordon specifically, which is I think what you asked, I would hope that they do a Birds of Prey DC Finest start from 1999, which is the early Chuck Dixon and Phil Noto stuff, and then move on to Simone and Tony Bedard as those runs move along. Flipping through the.
She still will appear, I think, she does appear in the No Man's
She
Land
does.
stuff a little bit.
She does, yeah.
So she'll probably show up in that aspect, in that role, but just not very much.
Yep. Max Appleman, how are you doing, my friend? Flipping through the book to show off the art. The real art is Kurtis's beautiful face on screen.
Well, thanks, Max.
Aw, cool guy. I originally skipped this book. Dr. Zero says I originally skipped this book when it first came out because Barbara was my Batgirl. Will probably sit on my shelf for a while until the few issues get reprinted. It's really good stuff. Like, it is legitimately some of the best stuff I think you'll ever read. Scoring is just considered used to myself anyways. Great topic, guys. Finest book, some of my favorites. Hope you're doing well. Starscream 1988. And No Concept says, this is my first finest book because I'm currently really digging Tate Bromble's new run on Batgirl, and I wanted to read more stories with Cass. Can't wait to dive in. For those who might not know, I think we'll end on this topic for Batgirl. Cassandra Cain has obviously been one of the like has had her sort of semi resurgence, at least as of like one of the main Batgirls for the last couple of years. Kelly Thompson decided to put her on the Birds of Prey team, which is one of my favorite books coming on right now. And we also have the Tate Bromble, who's on the art? I think it's Takeshi Miyazawa on art. Who's doing? They're doing a an ongoing for Cass, and I find it really cool that DC has put Cass back at the forefront because I think she is just that awesome. And I'm really happy that they decided to put this Batgirl out instead of say a different era Batgirl or like pre-crisis Batgirl with random Silver Age stories with Barbara. So I'm very very happy on that front. Would a No Man's Land in the first issues of Cassandra fill a whole previous fight? Yes. I have the mapping somewhere, Jarn. Maybe I can dig for it and I can talk about it at the end. But yes, the pre like detective, like the 2 or 3 issues of Detective, 2 issues of Batman, Azrael, certain excerpt, other excerpts from No Man's Land, and then the first 6 issues will be more than enough to get a DC Finest volume. And one last one, Simone Birds of Prey has been well covered. Dixon Run needs more collected edition love. Maybe start there in Finest and work through the reading order so the recent Birds of Prey trades have more time before going out of print. Yeah, I agree with you there. We obviously have the Simone Birds of Prey omnibus coming out later this year. I think that they would start off with if they were to do a Birds of Prey DC Finest, I could see them doing Chuck Dixon and Phil Noto's run first before getting to anything else. But that is all of our thoughts on Batgirl Nobody Dies Tonight. Fantastic book. No notes. No anything else. But Kurtis was able to read more before I did. And he was able to read through this hunky chunk of the Superman family, the John Turtle Man. So if you want to take it away, my friend, the stage is yours.
Okay, so remind me, is this the thickest DC Finest we have right now?
I believe it is.
It's over 660 pages, and it's
Mhm.
noticeably thicker than and then these other ones, just when you have the spines all together, it stands out as being, well, maybe you can't
Let
see it
me
so
see
much,
if I
but
can blow up. Okay, let's blow you up.
it definitely is thicker. Actually, Peacemaker seems pretty thick too, but Superman Family, when you hold this one in your hand, it is just super, super thick. And um, so this one collects, let's see here. It's mostly Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, 19 to 28, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, 49 to 56. Um, the entire issues, I think they all had 3 stories, and all 3 of the stories for each of those issues is in this book. So this really is a collection that is collecting those 2 titles, and they're rounding it out with issues from Action Comics, and mostly starring um, Lois Lane solo stories and that kind of stuff, and Adventure Comics, and let's see here, Superman, Superboy, and that's it. So yeah, it rounds it out because it's not just a collection of Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen stories. They're also throwing in crypto stories, Streaky the Super
Streaky.
Cat
I love
stories.
Streaky.
They have a couple from Perry White solo stories and even a Pete Ross story as well. So most of those are it's showcasing the whole Superman family, which is why this one's called Superman Family. It's actually really, really nice. I like it a lot. And um, one thing to note is that the cover credits are not right.
Hmm.
I think they used the Jeff Dyer pointed this out in the Finest group. They must have used the Supergirl
Yeah.
template when they went to design the cover for this book because these Otto Binder and Jerry Siegel and Jim Mooney are the credits that are on the cover of Supergirl. And if you look at the mock-up art that they released when this book was first announced, those names are different on the bottom here. And not to say that these are wrong, because all of these 3 creators still do stuff in this book. They're just not the main people on these titles. Okay, so About the book itself, it's just each one of these stories, it's short stories. They're about 6 to 8 pages long, and they all feature the character getting into some sort of mischief that usually Superman has to bail them out of. It's not always the case, but usually that's what happens. And what's really, really fun about this comic is that it's kind of the most bizarre or unusual circumstances. So in some of these, a lot of them revolve around the characters getting superpowers for a short period of time. So Lois Lane will get X-ray vision, or Jimmy Olsen will turn into an elastic superhero. Um, and or they get themselves in a predicament where they have to pretend to have superpowers in order to get themselves out or something like that. Lois Lane gets trapped inside the bottle of Candor for a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days, or she hits her head and she imagines that she's in the time of Robin Hood and the knights. Jimmy Olsen gets super fat in one issue and has to deal with that. So there's that kind of stuff. And it's all fun. I really, really like this. And so the Silver Age of DC is hit or miss for me. Sometimes I love it with the Flash. Sometimes I find it to be a real chore to read, like the Supergirl issues in the Supergirl Finest. Um, this is where I think DC has it's the most fun because we all know the DC Silver Age as being kind of overly goofy, and maybe that doesn't work to its fullest extent with Batman or with some of these other characters, but with Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and Superman's girl Lois Lane, I think it works perfectly because these are two characters that otherwise would be very boring to read in their own standalone issues, standalone stories, if not the fact that they go on over the top extreme adventures. I love the writing. I love the short form storytelling, and all of the artists here are top notch, and they all evoke the typical Silver Age feel of these DC comics. And a lot of it is Kurt Swan, who is just absolutely fantastic. Kurt Schaffenberger is another one who's in here a lot, and I think those two really are the main artists here.
You had like some
Um,
Robert Bernstein in there thrown in as well, yeah.
yeah, I mean he's a writer,
Right. Oh,
but
you're right. Yeah, yeah.
Joe
Forgot.
Forte, um, Al Plastino does some of the issues, and but yeah, they all have a very similar style because DC had kind of a house style at the time. No one really strayed so far from it, but they're all solid, and the restoration is so nice. And here, all the lines are crisp and clean, so you can see the artwork really, really well. Um, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. I thought this was an excellent one. I only got it a few days ago, and I've already plowed through 300 pages, the first 300 pages of the book,
That is
um,
impressive.
which for this one is super fat. Uh, this is also, I noticed that it has the first appearance of Lex Luthor's sister,
Mm-hmm.
Lana, or no, Lena
Elena.
Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
Her first appearance is in one of these stories here. And yeah, otherwise, super great. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I read the first story that I actually read in this. I specifically said, man, I just want to read the giant turtle man issue with Jimmy Olsen. So that was literally the first story that I plowed through in this book, and I told myself, man, Jimmy just ends up in the craziest situations, and it's perfect for him because it's like it's like you're a photographer, small time reporter for the for the Daily Planet. We need to figure out something to do with you. And I thought to myself, like, I really need to read more of these Jimmy Olsen stories because he just ends up in like the weirdest situations. It's like, I was reading through the story and I thought, oh man, it's just whatever the ray is that's just gonna make him blow up. But there's another like added like small added element to it that like if you blink you'll miss it. But there's a reason to why he becomes a giant turtle man. I had so much fun with it because like the cheekiness of the issue, like they're not trying to, I think, do anything more than just put these characters in whatever weird way that they can. And I thought like that story in itself was like perfect. It took me like I like a moment to say or think about like, man, I wish some of these stories were like a little bit longer because some of them are only like 8-10 pages, but you do get a full story in there regardless of whatever the situation is. There's another one that I also read where Lois Lane gets thrown into the future. We get to see like, oh man, this is like what the Daily Planet looks like. This is what Metropolis looks like. And when you get
Yeah.
sent off in the future. But I had a lot of fun, at least with a couple of stories that I've read. Unfortunately, I did not get enough time to plow through as much as Kurtis. But for all of the stories that I have read, some of the like the Legion, like Mon-El shows up in here, and I just told myself like, oh yeah, but there's characters here that I recognize from other different parts. It at least from what I have read, I cannot wait to get more because these are just pleasant. And like you said, it works best for Jimmy and it works best for Lois because they're characters that you would just expect to end up in a weird situation.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
I have to disagree with you saying that you want to see these longer. I think all of these are the perfect length.
Okay.
All of these concepts probably don't warrant a full 22 pages or something like that. I think it's absolutely fine that they are the length that they're in, and the way that they are written, actually the pacing is just fine.
Okay.
I thought they all worked really well so far, the ones I've read at least. There's one comment you have here that wants to know if all of the covers are included in these issues as well. And yes, they are. For the Lois Lane and the Jimmy Olsen stories, they all of the covers are included. Um, the only places where the covers are not included is if they pull a single story from like a Superman issue or something like that. So Superman, the Superman ones, if the character like Crypto or Jimmy Olsen are featured on that cover, they will include that cover. But if they are not, then they don't include the cover. But the Jimmy Olsen and the Lois Lane covers are all there. They're all in here. This is a funny story. What is it called? The Mystery of the Tiny Supermen. Basically, everybody in the bottle of Candor dresses up as Superman, and they let them out. So there's just a whole bunch of little
Oh
tiny
man,
Supermen
that's so
running
cute. I
around.
love that.
Yeah.
That's the craziness of the Silver Age era. I think where I'm just coming from is like I like there's part of me that wishes that the giant turtle man wasn't like it was only like a pretty it's not a exaster like completely long story. It is pretty short. But otherwise no, I really did at least from what I have read, granted not a big sample. There are certain elements of the Silver Age that I do very very much enjoy and I need to have more of this so I can just tell people, you know, when I go watch Superman, someone says like, "Hey, how much Superman have you read?" I can tell them, "Hey, this is what happened in the 1960s with all of these different characters that you're seeing on screen." I kind of also hope that if we ever get to see like Jimmy Olsen get big in a Superman film, that Gunn pulls out some of those elements. I want to apologize to the people out there that I'm just super excited for the Superman movie. But no, this is fun, and also like I think a lot of people have mentioned too, like where else are you gonna get your restored Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane Silver Age issues than in here?
Totally.
So yeah, this is perfect if you want to get somebody into the craziness and hokiness of comics. I think this is a really good place to start, and I'm really happy that they decided to go this route for all of these issues. And it's also nice, like you mentioned, that it's not just Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and not just Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane. It's everything else that isn't necessarily Clark Kent Kal-El related that's also thrown in here as well. So kudos to DC for putting this collection out because yeah, it is really nice that they decided to put it out. Maybe because of the movie, maybe because of other different areas, but I'm really glad that Superman and his entire supporting cast are getting their features just as much as the rest of the other characters are for this line.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of similar to the team up not Superman team up, but just the team ups book
Mm-hmm.
where they're putting the two titles into one line and rather than giving them their separate lines because branding this one Superman Family will probably sell better than branding it Jimmy Olsen.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
they could call it Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which is 100% why they called it that in the
Mm-hmm.
original, like way back in the 60s. Um, but I think this is a good move, putting the two books together rather than trying to sell Lois Lane on her own.
Mm-hmm.
This is a smart move. And then also, I think that the same thing for the team up book. I think it's smart to put Batman and Superman in the same book rather than trying
Mm-hmm.
to run those two titles separately and
Separately.
calling one World's Finest and calling the other Brave and the Bold. I think it works better. Um, we might see more of that type of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we soon get a Batman family
Mm-hmm.
collection. Um, maybe that one collects, maybe that's where we'll find the well, I mean, I don't know. What would Batman family collect? Because they don't have the same, like
Huntress,
they don't have they
Azrael.
never there's never an Alfred
No,
title.
no. Um, Maybe you could just have random appearances of Alfred. Although, like, I think Alfred does his best, like, or shows up in his best when he's just making smart remarks at Batman in regular Detective Comics titles. Maybe they could just like pull two-page snippets of him saying like cheesy
Yeah,
one-liners from
I don't, yeah.
the Golden or Silver
But
Age.
was it there was a title called Batman Family, wasn't there?
Was there? I don't recall. Maybe I'm I don't know actually. I'm going to look up
I
that
can't
right.
remember. I thought there was. Maybe it was just a bunch of reprints or something like that. But
There is
yeah.
a Wayne Family Adventures book but that's a that's a webtoon. Oh, there is a Batman Family title that ran from 75 to 78. It ran for 20 issues, so not too particularly long. But it's got Commissioner Gordon, Man Bat, and Alfred all plastered. You know what? Might as well.
It looks like it featured
Oh,
solo and team up stories starring Batgirl and Robin.
I saw. Oh, so these are
So
just
those would probably be
these are reprints.
many of the issues of Batman Family featured Batman supporting characters such as Alfred, Vicky Vale, Elongated Man, Huntress, Ace the Bat Hound. So yeah, there we go. Duella Dent.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Let's get a Batman
You guys got a
Family
Batman Family
uh
book.
DC Finest. That sounds fine to me. I think that'd be fine. Um, it looks like there's also a Super Team Family and a Tarzan Family book as well. Huh.
Give
I'm
this.
learning a lot here today.
You learn more about the Silver and Bronze Age more than every single other day. You know, we got to do that. We got to tell DC like we want something like this. Although I will say, I mean, in the Batman department, we do have some pretty cool stuff there too. Let's see what the chat is saying about the Silver Age parts of this specific book. Kurtis, what is your favorite Silver Age DC finest so far?
Oh, well, it might be this one. This one I also really liked The Flash. I thought that was an excellent book as well.
Heck yes. Cassandra Cain is the Laura Kinney of the DC, and she needs to put. Hey, I think she's been getting a lot of great exposure and titles in the last couple of years. This is just me shamelessly plugging. Please read Kelly Thompson's Birds of Prey, guys. It is really awesome. I don't want you guys missing out on fun stuff. Jimmy Olsen is a
I do.
really digging those spines. They're good spines. Can't say too much about that. Where else are you gonna get the Lois Lane or Jimmy Olsen stories? I mean, that's another great point. I don't know if we're gonna be getting omnibuses of those at least anytime soon, but don't quote me on that. Um, if you like the Jimmy stories, you should check out what Ordway and Jurgens did with him right before Triangle Era started. I completely agree with you, Planet 628. Let's get that in DC Finest so Kurtis and I can talk about it. People are glad that you liked it. Already asked that. Why did so many Golden Silver Age comic characters have the same letter first and last names? To Jimmy Olsen's credit, he doesn't have the same letter to the first and last name of his entire name.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that alliterated names are just easier to remember than not.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one in particular, they actually through some of these stories poke a lot of fun at the fact that there are a lot of LL characters in Clark Kent's life. Lana Lang, um, and Lois Lane, of course, and Lori Lamari, and her sister Lucy Lane,
Mm-hmm.
Lex Luthor, Lena Luthor.
L's everywhere.
I don't know if there's others, but yeah, there's a lot, and they actually make a bunch of jokes about that in this book.
And that is part of the joy in reading through this. You get to see the digs that certain creators get when they have a chance to write these titles. Really scared about reading books before the Crisis event. More from DC. Not really sure I could be able to complete a book of this era. Uh,
No, that's fair. I think the Silver Age is definitely is not for everybody. It does take a certain frame of mind to get into them, and I've had a hard time with some of the books, like Supergirl. I didn't really enjoy, and so there are some that are better than others.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard. You don't want to plunk it down, 40 or 50 bucks for a book if you're not going to totally enjoy it. So you have to check it out, I think, independently
Mhm.
first to figure out if you're going to
Right.
like the whole thing.
Right. Before you pitch in $40 or how much is it in Canadian? 54 Canadian.
Yeah.
So who knows? What are your expectations of Superboy Finest compared to Supergirl and Family? Never really liked the idea of Superboy, but I'm intrigued. Um, that is right. We are getting a Superboy DC Finest coming in June, I think. If my mind recalls correctly.
No, it's this
Is
month.
this
I
month? Oh,
already pre-ordered it, I
oh, there you
think. I
go.
think it's one of the ones coming up. I think it's like next week.
We will have to dig through the list when we get around to seeing all the books in the future month. Um, I think Jimmy Olsen might stand its own, but I think Lois Crypto benefit being lumped together. That's fair enough to say. We've got Batmite. Yeah, Batmite, Hard to Beat the Flash. There is a Robin omnibus that collects a lot of stories like these. That is a cool book. We realize, yeah, they did a Robin Bronze Age omnibus. Um, that came out, I want to say like 6, 7 years ago. I think, yeah, I could definitely see them putting a lot of those stories in DC Finest.
Yeah, I'm sure once we get a Robin line, it'll have a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, Linda Lee. There you go.
Oh yeah, Linda Lee, that's Supergirl's secret identity.
Indeed.
Sort of. It's her alias.
Indeed, it
It's
is.
funny because they flip that narrative on her head. It's like she's protecting her secret identity, her real identity of Supergirl
Hmm.
by pretending to be someone named Linda Lee.
Indeed, and it's a completely different type of different identity than the Peter
And
David.
Kara.
Right. Yep. So let's look at the titles that are going to come out next month before we end this time together with you guys. The first of which is 0 Hour Crisis in Time Part 2 by Jurgens and Ordway and so many other creators. Collecting the second half of what is in the 0 Hour Crisis in Time omnibus.
Yeah, this is the one coming out well, I guess not next week, but the week after, the first week of May. Looking forward to this. The first volume I wasn't too keen on because a lot of the tie-ins didn't really have a purpose in being there. So we'll see how the story wraps up. I'm glad that there's not a whole lot of time passing between
Mm-hmm.
these two releases so I can get the full story.
Indeed. The next one is Superboy, the super dog
There it
from
is.
Krypton. There it is. Yeah, May 13th. Collecting Superboy 33 to 43 and Adventure Comics 199 to 260. Yeah, I'm gonna be reading a lot of these stories for the first time, even if I'm not like, I mean, I'm keenly aware it exists. I just have never read these stories, so it's gonna be a first time for me. And last but not least, You got the continuation
This
of
one.
the 80s, but I still cannot believe they're putting Son of the Demon and Killing Joke in the DC Finest. Like, I still think that's pretty cool.
So someone on the DC Finest Facebook group got an advanced copy of this one already,
Oh,
which is pretty nice. And so we have confirmed that they are using the original coloring for Batman the Killing Joke,
ooh.
not the recoloring.
So there you have it, guys. Thank you to our friend in the DC Finest Facebook group for allowing us to share that information. Let's see a couple of other things before we head out. We may. What are you guys' top three DC Finest releases so far, man? That is such a hard question to answer, but I think I can nail it. I can nail mine down to Batgirl. I really, really like Suicide Squad. You know what? For posterity's sake, I'll say Doom Patrol, Doom Patrol, Flash, and Batgirl. Or sorry, I'm so sorry. Doom Patrol, Batgirl, and Suicide Squad. Those are my top three.
No, okay. Um, this is definitely hard. Uh, Green Arrow.
Good one.
Man, I want to put Batman year one and year two up there, but I think there's a few. For the longest time, that's the one I like the most. Batgirl's probably up there, and I think Teen Titans.
Teen Titans is so good. Oh,
Green Arrow, Teen Titans, and Batgirl, I
good
think.
three, man. Yeah, no, we've had a
Yeah.
lot of really, really strong titles come out from DC Finest thus far. So yes, those are our top three for both of us. Kurtis, glad you enjoyed. Uh, Interesting. Yeah, Curtis, I'm so glad
Golden
you.
Age Superman, yeah.
Yeah, very easy to read for
I
Golden Age
did like
book.
that one a lot.
Really good stuff.
I found that one easier to read than some of the Silver Age stuff. It's a very it's a very different type of book, that's for sure.
Indeed. Starman waiting in the skies. Gianni, hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Hope you are good. Do you think a Zatanna Vinus volume could work without touching the DD material enough to fill a book? Depends on where they're mapping it,
Why
honestly.
why would we not touch the Dini material?
Yeah,
Or
we should get the DD material in DC Finest. That would be awesome. Um, yeah, there's more than enough Zatanna to do that. Although again, a lot of it would be certain excerpts and issues because she didn't really have her own title up until that point. Um, I'm actually interested to see if they would do one for her father because Zatara does show up in Action Comics, like he does have stories in there. Um, I don't know. I'm interested to see like what they do with that because yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean they have more than enough material. I just think that I have no idea where you would start with Zatanna or if they've already mapped that out because I do think that there are other I think there are other characters that they want to touch on before we get to that. And also, do you include Identity Crisis in there? I don't know if you I don't know where they would start. So that is my answer. Crypto, indeed. I do love me some crypto. Need to get into the Starman Compendiums bookmark in just after the first Shade mini. I want Starman DC Finest. Hopefully, there's somebody out there who is thinking about that and can get us like those material and compendiums into DC Finest or maybe Omnibus, whatever that might entail.
is that a Vertigo title or DC title?
Regular DC or yeah,
Like
regular DC.
I mean I know I know that it's that Vertigo is owned by DC but
Oh
is
yeah, it's a
that
regular DC title. Yeah.
it's a regular DC title?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I started reading that once and I didn't get it. And I know it's called like one of the greatest comics of all time, but I need to read it again, give it a better shot, another shot, because I'm sure it's good, but I didn't make it very far in
Interesting.
before I gave up.
Yeah, it's more than fair. No, I it's one of my favorite runs. It's also like the one James Robinson book that I keep going back to. I like his JSA related material, not much of else. I've been like I think a lot of his other works are just kind of fine, but I really like JSA Golden Age, and I do love Starman. So yeah, hopefully we get in finest format, get to talk about it, because yeah, I'd love to have that conversation. Um,
Yeah.
because there is no other Teen Titans Finest that's been announced yet, I suspect that would be a yearly title for DC. Hope that there would be a line where they pump them out more, especially with out of print omnis. Yeah, no, I agree there. And also too, like they don't need to just do the Wolfmans. I'm actually very interested to see like where they decide to go for Teen Titans. Maybe they could jump up to the '90s stuff with Dan Jurgens, and what's her Devin Grayson. You got John's Teen Titans. Obviously, there's a lot of Teen Titans material to be collected. Um,
Yeah.
Legion DC Finest was cool, showing off the different art style change into the newer era. Completely agreed. Um, Let me see if I can. Let me answer this question. When is Peter David's Supergirl coming out? I got a 10/14 release date, so October 14th, Logan. At least for now. What? Did Melanie hack your account, James? Dom, you can tell. No, man. I love Tony Harris, and I really, really do like James Robinson when he does JSA stuff. I think that James, when he doesn't do JSA stuff, I have not found his stuff as strong, but that is just my opinion. And I think, yeah, completely agreed, and completely agree with you, Space Monkey. And I think that is it for that on this specific month of Finest Fridays without any hiccups, and with two-thirds of cool books. Batgirl's still one of my favorites. I need to finish Superman Family and get on that this weekend. But I want to thank everybody who has been here to hang out with us for the last hour and a half. We thank you guys for taking time out of your guys' lives to listen to us, whether you are watching us live or if you are watching us on a replay. And of course, would like to thank my buddy Kurtis for also sharing his time with me every single last one of these months to talk about these books. Thank you so
Oh
much.
yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the constant invite and including me in this. I honestly probably wouldn't be reading these fast, or probably not even buying all of them if it weren't for this show. So thanks for that.
No, 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 man. I mean, it's always like this is one of the best times of the month for me. Always fun like setting up the show too and making sure everybody's like integrated in the conversation as much as possible. And this is definitely one of the highlights of the month for me. So thank you for joining me, and thank you guys for being with us. Kurtis, where can people find you in this case?
Well, just look for Epic Marvel Podcast on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. Those are the three places I spend my most time. Sometimes I'm on X, not very much. But if you look for the two Facebook groups that I'm running, the Epic Marvel, the Epic Collection Facebook group and the DC Finest Facebook group, I'm usually hanging around there a bunch talking about those books.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Thanks, James, for adding those links.
Thank you. Yes, so you can check out Kurtis there. Of course, you can check out. We have a the longest running list of all of these DC finest over at comicreleases.com. If you are watching us, you can also check out our Patreon and Discord. The Patreon, I do want to say, I think we hit 100 patrons a couple of weeks ago. So thank you
Nice.
guys for supporting us in that. Obviously, you don't. It's a free to use resource. You don't have to donate, but we help with it. Helps out with server costs and also maintenance, and making sure that everything is up and running well. And we would like to thank you all for that. And you can also check me out, of course, on here. I have a couple of videos that are hopefully going to be coming out in the next 2-3 weeks. I am slammed down with the mail as finals week is in 2 weeks for me. But after that, expect some cool videos upcoming. I am in a crunch, but man, I will say the content creation of it all and getting to talk with people like you, Kurtis, it has been fun, and I'm really, really happy that you got to spend time with me. If anybody is here, please make sure to hit that like button. It helps out with the algorithm, also helps out in conversations like these, and also sub to Dom. I think we're gonna reintegrate that back into the system. So if you haven't yet, sub to Dom. That is it for me. I'm Dom. This is Kurtis, and we hope you guys stay safe and have a wonderful day wherever you are.